Let's talk about a quiet revolution that's happening right now in the heart of India's biggest, busiest cities. It's a story about marriage, but it's also a story about money, freedom, and how the very idea of family is being reshaped in modern India. So, let's get right to it. The core fact is this. Across cities like Mumbai, Delhi, and Bengaluru, divorce filings are climbing, and they've been climbing for a while now. But what's really fascinating is that this isn't a wave sweeping the whole country. No siree. It's a trend that's really concentrated in these big metropolitan hubs. So you gotta ask, right? What is it about city life? What's going on in the metros that's changing the game for marriage so dramatically? To get to the bottom of this, we really need to look at life in the city versus life in more rural parts of India. All right, let's break this down. We're going to start with the first huge piece of the puzzle, the massive economic and structural changes that are defining modern city life. This is all about the money, the independence that comes with it, and how the family unit itself is starting to look different. You know, if you had to point to just one thing that's fueling this shift, this would be it. As more and more women in cities get access to higher education and land-stable jobs, their financial independence just completely changes the conversation. It gives them options, real choices that their mothers and grandmothers just never had. And you can really see the stark difference here. In the city, having your own income can mean having the freedom to walk away from a marriage that's just not working, or worse, one that's abusive. It's no surprise that a growing number of divorce petitions are actually filed by women. Now, compare that to many rural areas. There, financial dependence on a husband and his family often means a woman has to, adjust. She's told to endure, because really, what other choice does she have? And it's not just about an individual's bank account. The whole support system, or lack thereof, around a marriage is completely different. Those large joint families that are so common in villages, they're becoming much less common in the cities, replaced by smaller, nuclear families. And this is where things get really interesting. See, in that rural joint family system, when there's a problem, you've got elders, aunts, uncles, everyone gets involved. They mediate, they offer support, but they also apply a ton of pressure to keep the marriage together. In a city, a couple in a nuclear family is often navigating conflicts all on their own, and without that traditional buffer, small problems can blow up into big ones, fast. Okay, so we've got the economic side, but that's only half the story. This new urban world doesn't just change the family structure, it brings a whole new set of pressures to the table. And in doing so, it's completely rewriting the rules of what marriage is even supposed to be. At the very heart of this is a deep psychological shift. City life, almost by default, encourages individualism. It's about your personal happiness, your fulfillment. That's a huge departure from the idea of collectivism, which is much more common in rural communities, where the focus is on the group, on family honor above any one person's desires. So how does that actually play out in a marriage? Well, in the city, the mindset is shifting. Divorce might not be seen as a failure anymore, but as a necessary step towards a better, happier individual life. But in a more collectivist, rural setting, divorce can bring a deep sense of shame, not just on the couple, but on their entire families. It's a totally different calculation. And on top of all that, you just pile on the sheer stress of day-to-day city living. We're talking about brutal commutes, high-pressure jobs, spending less and less quality time together, the crazy cost of living, and of course, the constant pressure of social media, where everyone's life looks perfect. All of these things put a unique strain on a relationship. So with all this going on, with all these new realities, it's only natural that what people want from a marriage has started to change too. For a lot of urban couples, the old definitions just don't cut it anymore. This leads to what a lot of experts are calling an expectation gap. In the city, there's a growing expectation for a deep emotional connection, for real compatibility, for an equal partnership. And if those needs aren't being met, the marriage can feel empty. Meanwhile, in many traditional rural marriages, the primary goals have always been different: stability, raising a family, and each person fulfilling their role. Emotional fulfillment often wasn't the main priority. So this brings us to our third and final piece of this complex puzzle. Because having new expectations is one thing, but being able to actually act on them, that's another story entirely. And in the city, knowledge and access are absolute game changers. It really is this simple. People in cities are way more likely to know what their legal rights are, and, maybe even more importantly, they can actually find help. just being close to resources is a massive catalyst for change. I mean, just look at the difference here. If you're in a city, you can find a lawyer, a counselor, a support group, often with a quick search online. The family courts are right there. But in many rural areas, there's just very little awareness of legal rights. The courts might be hours away, the whole process is expensive, and there's such a heavy stigma that stops people, especially women, from even asking for help in the first place. And this access to support becomes absolutely critical when we have to talk about the really difficult and sensitive topic of domestic abuse. The way it's handled in these two different worlds, well, it's night and day. Now, this is a really, really important point. The statistics might show more abuse cases being reported in cities, but that doesn't automatically mean more abuse is happening there. What it often means is that more women feel safe enough to actually report it. They know there's a system, police, NGOs, shelters, that they can turn to. In many villages, that culture of silence, driven by stigma and dependence, is incredibly powerful. Okay, so we've looked at the data, the economics, the social forces, but to really truly get this, we have to go beyond the charts and graphs and look at the human reality behind all these numbers. I just want you to take a second and absorb this quote from an urban professional. The day I got my first salary, I didn't buy anything. I hired a lawyer. For the first time, I felt I had a choice other than silence. Wow. I mean, that just connects all the dots, doesn't it? It shows that financial independence isn't really about the money. It's about agency. It's about finding your voice. So, here's the big takeaway. It's really easy to look at these rising divorce statistics and just see a story of failed marriages. But that's not the full picture, not even close. What we're really seeing is a society in the middle of a massive transformation. It's a story of changing values, new freedoms, and the messy, complicated, and often painful process of redefining what partnership even means in the 21st century. And that leaves us with a huge question, one that isn't going away. This trend isn't slowing down. As India's cities get bigger, as more women join the workforce, and as personal dreams continue to evolve, what does all this mean for the future of the family, for the future of relationships? That's a question that India, and frankly, much of the world, is going to be wrestling with for a long, long time.